Coronavirus crisis. The Supreme Court hears oral arguments on the Biden administration's COVID-19 vaccine mandates. We have analysis and reaction. Colorado wildfires. President Joe Biden visits the stricken neighborhoods where one Catholic family found hope amid the rubble. Church diplomacy. How Catholic leaders in Europe are working with lawmakers. And Orthodox Christmas. Why some parts of the world are celebrating the birth of Christ today. On EWTN News Nightly for Friday, January 7th, 2022. Thank you so much for being with us tonight on this Feast of St. Raymond of Pennafort. I'm Tracy Sable. Well, can companies require employees to get a COVID-19 vaccine or test every week? While the U.S. Supreme Court is looking at the legality of two federal vaccine mandates under the Biden administration. On Capitol Hill, lawmakers are sounding the alarm about the economic fallout. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales has the details.
The U.S. Supreme Court will have the final say on two of President Biden's vaccine mandates. The first, requiring businesses with more than 100 employees to impose a vaccine or testing mandate, which could affect more than 84 million workers. The Biden administration estimated that would cause 22 million people to get vaccinated and prevent 250,000 hospitalizations. The second, requiring healthcare workers to be vaccinated if they receive Medicare or other federal funds. Republicans tell me the president has gone too far.
Biden's vaccine mandate is unlawful, it's unconstitutional, it's an abuse of power. And I hope and believe the Supreme Court will strike it down as exactly that.
States led by Republican leaders along with religious organizations are challenging these mandates, which would go into effect January 10th, claiming they ignore sovereign rights. They add Congress has not authorized the measures. Senator John Thune tells me the mandates will further damage the economy.
It's having a terrible impact on businesses. They can't find workers in many cases because of these mandates have been put on by the administration.
Others say these mandates should come from the states directly.
For the federal government to begin doing this is a step a little bit far. And for OSHA to do this without any hearings, without promulgating, anything you would normally do, seems more obeying the wishes of the president as opposed to good public policy.
Even Democratic Senator Joe Manchin agrees. He says, quote, I have always supported a vaccine mandate for federal employees and the military, maintaining the essential services and readiness. However, I do not support any government vaccine mandate for private businesses. Senator Cruz tells me it's a personal decision.
We have seen Democrats from mayors to governors to the President of the United States demonstrate that they are happy to be petty authoritarians. Joe Biden is trying to fire people all across the country for making their own personal medical decisions.
The justices could hand down a decision in a matter of days. Eric Rosales, EWTN News Nightly.
And joining us now to discuss more on this is Roger Severino, Senior Fellow at the Ethics and Public Policy Center and Director of EPPC's Health and Human Services Accountability Project. Roger, welcome back. Always so great to see you. First off, I want to get your take on today's oral arguments.
It was all about who gets to decide. Will it be individuals deciding what they put into their own bodies? Will it be their bosses? Will it be state governments and health authorities? Or will it be the federal government mandating that people get vaccinated? And that was one of the key questions. Who gets to decide? And I think many of the justices were skeptical that the federal government had the power or has the power through a regulation for workplace safety to say that millions upon millions of Americans must be vaccinated. And there was a lot of skepticism about that. I think it put the Biden administration on its heels. It was a very interesting argument. The argument wasn't so much whether or not COVID is a real threat. It's whether or not this is the solution. Is mass forced vaccination from the federal government the solution? Or is it something where the federal government is just trying to make a point, to act like it is doing something, anything to address the crisis?
And Roger, were there any moments that stood out to you or maybe that you found surprising?
Well, the Solicitor General, which is the top lawyer for the administration, said that the main purpose was to protect the unvaccinated from getting sick and getting the COVID infection, and said some of the folks cannot get vaccinated because of medical reasons and for religious accommodation, people who object to the vaccine, in many cases because of its link to being tested or developed with aborted fetal cells. And she went so far as to say that the federal government is justified in forcing people to be vaccinated to protect the religious liberty of people who cannot get vaccinated. I thought that was extraordinarily surprising coming out of the Biden administration. I'm sure their friends in the ACLU are calling them up right now saying, did you really just say that to the Supreme Court? So I was very pleased to see, surprisingly, the Biden administration took a very pro-religious liberty argument in this highly contentious issue. So they're really going to, I think you can't back away from saying that religious accommodation is not only legitimate, it's going to be required in many of these cases.
Yeah, and as we heard, I'm going to turn to this in Eric's report a little earlier, Senator Ted Cruz actually said that the mandate is unlawful, it's unconstitutional, and also an abuse of power. I want to get your thoughts on that statement.
It is hard to imagine that when Congress passed the OSHA Act to give Occupational Safety and Health Administration authority for things like hard hats and things like the heights of railings in construction sites, that they meant you could force people to be vaccinated. That's not only a workplace issue, but it's a forever issue. Once you're vaccinated, that's it. You can't ever take that away or take that back. There was a lot of skepticism at the court saying whether or not the government has the authority to do such a mandate. Did Congress speak clearly enough? How does it impact the authority of the states in this area? There was a little bit more leeway on the CMS question because it's federal government paying for it. But even there, you saw some hard questioning from some of the justices. Now, you had some of the liberal justices saying, but this is a very dangerous threat right now, especially with the hospitalizations. I was surprised they didn't take into account what has happened with Omicron. The vaccine is a far reduced in effectiveness. It's now down to 33% effective in limiting transmission of COVID under Omicron. Why are they going to be imposing something when it is so limited in its effect to limit the spread of this disease?
And Roger, we probably have a minute or so left, but quickly talk to us about the importance of this case, what's at stake, and ultimately, what do you think will happen?
Well, I think the Supreme Court is probably going to strike down the OSHA mandate. It'll be a closer question on the CMS one because it's a smaller group of healthcare professionals. But the broad mandate is so overreaching. It makes no distinction between young people who are unvaccinated, who are at the same risk level as older people who are vaccinated, but it's only treating the unvaccinated people in a particular way. And masking and testing might not be an option because there's such a shortage of test kits available. So you're going to be in a tough position where people are going to be fired from their jobs, including if the CMS rule goes through in healthcare at the time when there's so much turmoil in the economy and when we see that the efficacy of the vaccine has dropped tremendously. It's all shifting in various different ways, cutting against the administration. Omicron is looking to be less deadly than Delta was, even though it's more transmissible. So we're going to see a lot of questioning from the court. I'm not sure they're going to have enough time by Monday to decide it. But I think ultimately you're going to say that the federal government has overreached on this question with the federal mandate.
All right, and we will see what happens. Roger, thank you so much. I always appreciate your time and analysis.
Thank you.
Lawmakers in South Dakota have approved a new rule for chemical abortions. It requires an in-person medical visit to receive the second of 2 drugs used in a non-surgical abortion. The state only allows women to receive the first drug after a 72-hour waiting period following an initial medical visit. President Joe Biden credits his American Rescue Plan for jump-starting the economy. The numbers just came in for December, with U.S. employers adding 199,000 jobs last month. But like everything else, COVID is upending the workforce. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reports. Owen.
Tracy, good evening to you. If anyone's looking for a job right now, there are plenty of jobs available. Wages are up and unemployment is below 4%. But in the month of December, employers added just 199,000 jobs, less than expected, and businesses are struggling to hire.
The much predicted crisis didn't occur. The Grinch did not steal Christmas.
President Joe Biden says he wants to build on his plan to fix the supply chain, promote competition, and lower costs for consumers.
Record job creation, record unemployment declines, record increases in the people in the labor force. I would argue the Biden economic plan is working.
But the Heritage Foundation tweeted, Washington has done enough damage to the labor market. It's time for policymakers to abandon the Build Back Better Act, COVID vaccine mandates, and other government barriers to work. And as Omicron rages, experts worry job growth may slow in the coming weeks.
But COVID, as we're dealing with it now, is not here to stay. The new normal doesn't have to be. We have so many more tools we're developing and continuing to develop that can contain COVID.
The White House also announcing an additional $4.5 billion to help low-income Americans pay their heat bills and avoid shutoffs. Also today, to mark Orthodox Christmas, the president writes, as we begin a new year with many Orthodox Christians around the world continuing to face persecution and discrimination, we also reaffirm our unwavering commitment to uphold the universal and inalienable right of religious freedom. Christmas reminds us that a child brought to us a light that shines in the darkness, and that light can never be overcome. Now, separately tonight, the March for Life arrives here in the nation's capital later this month, and the theme this year is Equality Begins in the Womb. Now, yesterday in the press briefing room, I asked the press secretary if President Biden believes in that theme, if he agrees with that theme, that equality begins in the womb. And she would only say, as she often does, that the president believes in a woman's right to choose. Mark it down now. The March for Life arrives January 21st, again here in the nation's capital. At the White House, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly.
Coming up, Orthodox Christians celebrate the birth of our Savior. A congregation of Orthodox Christians in Serbia braved coronavirus restrictions to attend a Christmas Eve midnight mass in Belgrade last night. Most Orthodox Christians celebrate Christmas on January 7th since they follow the Julian calendar. It's also Christmas for the Orthodox in Russia. The main midnight service was held in Moscow at Christ the Savior Cathedral. Patriarch Kirill, the head of the Russian church, celebrated the liturgy with dozens of other priests and deacons. The service was broadcast live on national television. Outside of Moscow, President Vladimir Putin attended a midnight liturgy at the tiny Church of the Savior Not Made by Hands. The president often attends Holy Day services at small churches outside of the capital. Elsewhere in Russia, nativity symbols are seen in a beautiful ice sculpture competition. 21 teams participated in the event in Russia's fourth largest city in front of a 600-year-old church. The sculptures go on public display next week. While Kazakhstan's embattled president has authorized lethal force to quell this week's protests. The televised announcement signals a crackdown against unrest, which began Sunday over fuel price inflation. Russian-led forces are now being dispatched to the former Soviet Republic, where clashes have left dozens of police and protesters dead and thousands more detained. Our church leaders in Europe have issued a welcoming message to the new country in charge of a group within the European Union. The Commission of the Bishops' Conferences of the European Union, also known as COMECE, says it looks forward to working with the country of France, which took over the presidency of the European Council on New Year's Day. The country previously in charge was Slovenia. Joining us now from Belgium is Father Manuel Barrios Prieto, General Secretary of COMECE. Father, thank you for your time today. What are your hopes for the working relationship between COMECE and the new president of the European Council?
Well, I think my hopes are very good for the moment. I think we have worked quite hard in the past years, and now we have this French presidency of the European Council, and the priorities that it has set, I think, are important, are quite logical. The recovery from the pandemic, the a growth in Europe, a sovereign Europe. And there's a third priority that the French presidency has suggested, and it has to do with values, with democracy, with humanism. So I think there's a good possibility for collaboration between the Church and the French presidency of the European Council. So I'm quite hopeful in this moment.
And what are some of maybe the big events that your group is working on?
Well, we have to follow very closely the policies that the European Union is going to propose for the recovery from the pandemic. And as we do, we're following very closely social and economic policies, migration and asylum, and freedom of religion. We're very also near and following very closely external relations of the European Union, the partnership with Africa, the eastern border, the question of the Western Balkans. So all this we're going to follow, as is our work, to follow the European Union policies. But there are some events that are quite important in the very near future. For example, there's going to be the election of the new president of the European Parliament in mid-January, and that's a very important, I think, issue for the future of the European Union. The Parliament is a very important institution, so we're going to follow that very closely. We have an important meeting of religious leaders with the Commission in mid-January, so that's also an important event. And then as COMECE, as the Commission of the Bishops' Conference of the European Union, we're preparing a social days in Bratislava in mid-March, and that will be a very important meeting for us because there are going to be representatives from the Bishops' Conference of the European Union in Bratislava and the rest of Europe. And we're going to discuss the recovery from the pandemic and important issues like its climate change, like its digitalization, like its demographic change that is taking place in Europe.
Absolutely. And the situation obviously is pretty critical right now in Europe. What else will you all be doing to help Catholics face this long emergency?
Well, we try to work together with the churches in the different countries, in the member states of the European Union. We try also to follow very closely the European policies in this area. We try to advocate for solidarity and sharing, as the European Union is doing. We also try to work against fake news. That is very important, also in the religious sphere. So I think we're trying to do our best also to collaborate with the institutions in this very important issue of the pandemic and its recovery.
Well, Father, thank you so much for your time today speaking with us, and thank you for all that you do. Father Manuel Barrios Prieto, General Secretary of COMECE. Thank you again.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you to you.
Up next, amid the devastation of Colorado's recent wildfires, one Catholic family finds a sign of hope. A massive wildfire swept through Colorado last week, the largest and most destructive fire the state has ever seen. The fire affected over 1,000 homes and businesses, and officials say there is $513 million worth of damage. Today, President Biden visited Colorado to assess the situation. Joining us now is Tom Greeny, a practicing Catholic and survivor of the Colorado wildfires. Tom, thank you so much for your time today. And want to say right off the bat here, we are so sorry, and we're praying for you and your entire community. And I know that you and your family have personally felt the impact of that wildfire. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, and also how you and the community are doing in general right now?
Yeah, thanks, Tracy. We're doing great through the outpouring of love and generosity of many, many people. We are established in a rental unit that's going to work out well for us. Most of the people in our neighborhood have been taken care of, but there is a long list of waiting list, I understand, for rentals, as you might imagine, with 1,000 families displaced. So we're doing really very well under the circumstances, I think better than most.
Yeah, and can you talk to us a little bit more about, personally what happened to your home. And also there was sort of, as I know, and people will find out, there was one thing that was left standing. Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, so when my boys and I got back to the neighborhood to survey the damage after the fire, it was complete. The home looked like it had just been vaporized, literally nothing you could recognize almost. Twisted beams, metal shelving that had melted and twisted, fallen bricks, crumbling mortar, and then we were standing on our front porch kind of looking, and there to our left was a statue of the Blessed Virgin Mary that's been there for 22 years. And, she had obviously taken a few hits from the brick. The whole right side of the statue was covered in kind of a tarry goo. The damage to the home was just almost indescribable. And the heat, we found melted oven racks, for example, and melted glass everywhere. But the statue stood tall, didn't even topple over, and it was clear that things had fallen around it and even probably struck the statue. So that gave us great peace, kind of like Mary saying, "I'm with you, I feel your pain, I'm praying for you, I'm no stranger to this sorrow," and it was just gave us a lot of peace.
Oh, I'm sure, especially seeing all that devastation. I mean, when you saw the statue of the Blessed Virgin Mary still standing there, what was your first reaction? What did you think?
Well, my wife and I have a devotion to Mary and consecrated ourselves to Christ through Mary, and we feel like she truly does look out for us and pray for us. And so it wasn't really that surprising. It was just reassuring. You can always use reassurance in moments like this.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to talk about, too, because you and your family certainly aren't the only ones who were impacted. And you mentioned all the people that need help. And we also understand Archbishop Samuel Aquila from the Archdiocese of Denver started a relief fund to help those families. What more do you know about that? And are other faith leaders in the area also doing the same?
So there are a lot of those sorts of funds, both Catholic and otherwise. People have been extraordinarily generous. Yes, Archbishop Aquila did start that. I think it's archden.org. Could be wrong. And, just like I say, people have just come out of the woodwork to be supportive. Nonetheless, the people who are best connected socially are doing far better. We do know people in our neighborhood who have needs. We've known people who are struggling in their relationships, that this is probably going to create two families out of one, and so there are a lot of people who are probably not as well socially connected that are definitely in need.
And Tom, what would you want people to know that are watching right now? How can we help? And also, what are your plans for the statue of the Blessed Mother that survived?
Yeah, so I think of myself, or I thought of myself originally as a terminal receiver, people just giving to me. But what I found is there's opportunities to regift things that we can't use, to take, our abundance of resources and hopefully be good stewards in paying it back in. There's opportunities to give. Everybody wants to give right after it happened. This is going to be a 2 to 3 year rebuild for most people, and there'll be many moments when they'll be able to step up and help with time or, just running errands, you name it. It doesn't have to be financial. One of the greatest gifts, we believe, is prayer. And almost everybody says, "You're in my prayers, but what else can I do?" As if to say, somehow that's not enough. But prayers are absolutely the greatest gift when they're made in faith. And I truly believe that. The statue, we decided we're not going to change anything. It's kind of a symbol of, through the worst and darkest of times, we're not alone, and it's not like we're going to clean that statue. God's great. I mean, He gives so much to us, and we were so blessed. And the reason why we feel these things as pain is because we're so blessed.
Well, Tom, I have to tell you, we are praying for you again. I know everyone is, and your community, and we thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us and sharing this all with us. God bless you.
Thank you, Tracy. God bless you all.
An incredible story. And Tom says the story of the statue has been picked up by national and international media, and that he and his family have received messages on social media from people around the world. In fact, some of those messages were from people struggling with their faith who say the statue of Mary now has them thinking of returning to the church. That is amazing. We thank you for watching tonight. For the entire EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Tracy Sable. We leave you tonight with scenes from Brazil and a procession yesterday for the Feast of the Epiphany. Good night and God bless.